You're tuned in to the Foxboro BeatCast, a podcast for Patriots fans by Patriots fans. And here are your hosts, is Kaleb McChesney and Ryan Moore.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Foxboro BeatCast. I'm your host, Kaleb McChesney. Alongside me is not Ryan, but without him even saying anything, you've already heard his voice on the show. He is the voice of the intro. Gerardo is back once again. It's been a long time. Last time he came on was back in May when the schedule first came out, and we talked about how the Patriots are like at max a 3-win team, and they're 3-14 now, so we weren't too far off. Gerardo, I'll give you a chance to reintroduce yourself to the fine people at home, and we'll get right into what this show is going to be about.
Hello, y'all. It's Gerardo. I usually do a live radio show here in Houston, Monday through Friday at 7 to midnight here. It's called Neon Nights on 93Q. I do voice Kaleb's intro, so technically I've already collected my paycheck for the show.
Yep.
But yes, last time we were talking, it was because of the schedule being released. Now, the funny part was, I was like, yeah, it's a 3-win max Patriots team. Now, they have allotted to that, so they've already hit their milestone marker. But I did not expect them to win week one. That when I first saw that, the first thing I thought about was my prediction. I was just like, oh, great. They're going to win 5 games this year, and I'm just going to look super smart in front of everybody. But yeah, it's been a fun ride, seeing, especially looking back at all those picks and seeing how wrong I was on a lot of things.
Me too, man.
But that's the NFL for you. You know what I mean? Can I predict that every quarterback from the Bryce Young draft class sucks this year? No.
Did you?
I mean, I wasn't a fan of none of them. I promise you that. And a lot of people don't want to talk about the Bryce Young narrative that he's technically outperformed C.J. Stroud since he came back from his benching.
It's true. It's been a weird year for the Texans.
Mm-hmm. I mean, a little bit underwhelming year for them. I mean, speaking of underwhelming, the Raiders have been unbelievably underwhelming. And then,
did you have the Raiders going far?
No, I shouldn't have. And if I look back, I'm sorry to everybody.
That's what we should have went back and rewatched the episode from May and just
a live reaction. Yes, I would have.
How off were we?
Yes, how bad was my prediction?
We'll have to save that for the end of the year. We'll bring you back in February and just rewatch it. Pause. Yeah. Oh, that was bad.
Exactly. Let's see how wrong or it's more doing prize picks, right? When you're trying to predict a touchdown, it's you're being really hopeful on a 6 for 6, but then you really want to look back and be like, oh man, I actually predicted that. That's great, because that's the NFL for you. You really can't. The only one that everybody's probably going to get right is the Chiefs. Probably the only one right. The one I think people probably got the most wrong, I would probably say, I think maybe Steelers is up there for people.
Steelers or Vikings?
Yeah, Vikings, without a doubt. I think a lot of people did not expect Sam Darnold's or the 49ers, because it's not just injuries for them. The 49ers, as a whole team cohesion, just is terrible this year.
They're going through a lot, man, over there.
And it's funny because a lot of it has to do with off the field issues that they are not talking about too. Because I think a big one, Trent Williams, lost their child.
Yeah, him and Travarius Ward. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Both lost children before the season. I mean, Ricky Pearsall getting shot. The contract negotiations for 3 players in the beginning of the season, and it's been a crazy ride. But I mean, what's even crazier, college football. That's what we're talking about today.
Yeah, no, we're going to just throw the NFL topics right out the window. That's not what we're doing today. Tune in on Wednesday or Thursday.
Right. And then we're going to talk about an actual NFL head coach now in college.
No, he's a former NFL head coach.
That is true.
So yeah, it's going to be a college football show. The playoffs start in 4 days with the first round of the CFB playoffs. We'll go through that. We'll go through some general predictions along those lines. We'll talk about the format, what we like, what we don't like. We'll talk about some bowl games that we found interesting, whether it's just by name, the Gin and Juice Bowl for one. And then we'll have some fun along the way. So let's just get right into the first topic for all you Patriots nerds who want to talk about Patriots stuff on a Patriots podcast. Again, it is a Patriots show for Patriots fans, as Gerardo so eloquently puts in the intro. Bill Belichick. Last time we recorded, I think it was like the day before this thing became official, and that Bill Belichick would be going to UNC, signed a 5-year deal, replacing Mac Brown. He's only a year younger than the guy they fired because he's old. But yeah, the University of North Carolina goes ahead, hires the 6-time Super Bowl winning head coach, formerly of the New England Patriots. I have a lot of opinions on Bill Belichick. Some good, some not so good. But yeah, he, for all intents and purposes, for now, looks like he's closing the book on his NFL career. He's 13 wins shy of Don Shula's all-time record. And just to kind of set the stage, Gerardo, you follow college football way more than I do. But I'm going to do the best I can to lay out the stage. UNC went 6-6 this year under this Mac Brown / Freddie Kitchen. Alec, when did they fire Mac Brown? Was that recent?
It was the day before their last game, I believe.
So, yeah.
Like, or they announced it.
6-5 under him and ended up 6-6. Or yeah, 5-6, whatever. They went 3-5 in conference play in the ACC. So yeah, let's just open it up here. Gerardo, what is kind of your first initial reaction when you saw it? What do you think of it? Did UNC make a good move? Did you watch the cringe fest that was the presser? Everything all included. Like, what was your kind of first reactions and thoughts?
First reaction was that, like, how many NFL teams are going to be kicking themselves in the foot that this dude is going to college and not the NFL? And on top of that, the college game has adapted crazily. Michael Lombardi is now their GM at UNC. There's an actual, like, there's a salary cap now literally in place. It's more like the NFL than anything before. Transfer portal is just free agents. Like, it is literally NFL for kids. Like, that's what it is nowadays. His recruiting, like, a lot of people forget, like, people who have kids nowadays watch this dude win Super Bowls. So there's already, like, the parents are like, I'm going to send my kid to UNC just because it's going to help them get to the NFL. That's all I care about.
That was Bill Belichick's main selling point to UNC when he was interviewing for the job. Like, this is going to be a program that gets these college kids ready for the NFL, getting ready for them to be professionals outside of football.
With high school football as well too. Like, he's very familiar with IMG Academy. He's very familiar with, like, a lot of the big powerhouses that provide NFL talent or, like, college football talent. IMG Academy was reported 140 plus of their students are in Division I like colleges. Like, that's insane. And to think, and UNC is not a, how do I say this? It isn't like he's going to a mid-level level of a school when it comes to recruiting. The UNC has had dumb level of talent at that before.
Well, the Patriots are reaping the benefits of one.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, Mac Brown had a stat class when he first came back to UNC when he first had success there with the Sam Howell recruiting class. He also had famously Drake May go there. Drake May picking them over the likes of, like you said, Bama, and on top of that, like, before then, there was a big to-do at UNC a long time ago, which was when, like, 9 of their players had an NFL agent way back in the day. And that was I believe, Marvin Austin and, the DN that played for the Rams for the longest. And he was a first-round pick. And, like, Greg Little, like, there was all, like, I think it had, like, 9 future NFL drafted players on that team. And it was, like, that team was loaded with talent, and all of them ended up getting, like, suspended that year.
Robert Quinn, is that who you're thinking of?
Yeah, Robert Quinn, exactly. Like, that team, if you look back at that UNC team, like, that team was stupidly stacked. Like, it's a team that has had recruits go in there. Julius Peppers famously has also been there. I mean, it's a beautiful campus. A lot of people, like, love going to, I believe it's Chapel Hill. That's where it's
Chapel Hill, yep.
So it isn't like he picked some random school and was like, yeah, I'm just going to rebuild UNC. Big whoop. Who cares? I mean, also one, he does have a tie to it. It's one of his first colleges, I believe his dad coached at.
Yeah. Like he was like 5.
Exactly. So it isn't like there isn't no unfamiliarity with the scene and with the area. And then the ACC, I mean, to me, is like one of the weaker of the Power Five conferences or Power Four, or whatever we're doing with nowadays. So it isn't like it isn't a non-winnable. Like all he has to do is go in against Clemson. Like that's all his real big competition is. Maybe Miami from time to time and Florida State if they ever bounce back. But
Miami anytime before like week 8.
yeah, like in all honesty, so I think it's like it's a really good to see what his transition is going to be. We have seen former NFL head coaches go to college, and for instance, Herm Edwards when he went to Arizona State was successful early on, but then fell off. We've also had,
Bad.
yeah, I mean, like it has been done before, but usually it's not a very much a good long term success. I'm a little bit shocked by the 5-year deal. I was thinking maybe
Oh,
like
he's not finishing that.
without a doubt, he's not. Like, I think once like his first class graduates, he's like, yeah, I'm good. I'm gonna just draft all these players, and I know exactly what I'm gonna get.
Listen, at the end of that contract, or like he's already like 72, gonna be 73.
Yeah, he's gonna be very old.
Like I could see him completing a year and then just being burnt out
Oh
and
yeah.
leaving it to his kid.
The crazy part was right because he's being part of the Pat McAfee show, and he was like a consultant for so many college football teams. Like, how much future
Oh,
planning?
he was hanging around Washington all season long because his
I mean,
kid's the
but not even
DC over
that.
there.
Like how many times was he talking to like Steve Sarkisian and all these people who he's like maybe going to face and out recruit, and he's like, yeah, thanks for telling me all your secrets. I was already going to be a college head coach. Thanks, bye. Like, and Bill Belichick is very much a black and white person. Like, I feel like when he goes to like if he goes to a recruit's house, he's like, I have 8 total Super Bowls, right? Like, how many does Steve Sarkisian have? So I thought. Like, because at the end of the day, college football has become more so how fast can I get to the NFL and how fast can I get paid by the NFL. And Bill Belichick is the only coach in college football that could straight up has that advantage over everybody else. He does. He has a game plan. He has a game plan at the highest of level. He knows exactly what it needs to do to win in 3 different decades. So no other college coach can literally out recruit him in that standpoint. You can do the money. And Bill Belichick has also been on say like I've already worked out the finances of how much a player's supposed to
Oh,
be paid.
UNC has already doubled their NIL enrollment. Like,
Exactly. So like at the end of the day, when a kid goes, no, I want 4 million, you know what Bill's gonna say? Yeah, good luck. Bye. Go play at Florida State. Don't care. Bye. Like, and that's
but
what I
the
think.
crazy thing is, the thing that drove Belichick out of New England, and we can rehash this 100 times, was he was really bad at his personnel management. But he never had a problem getting the most out of his players. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's going to be a very similar thing in college, if not going to be easier, because these kids are so young and malleable that he's going to be able to get the most out of them, and it's going to mean a lot more than the latter years in the NFL where, the offense, you couldn't develop a wide receiver or a quarterback to save his ass.
Exactly. And then he doesn't really need to. It's just kind of like, especially in college nowadays, you're kind of also even recruiting to be like, hey, what product is close to being finished as a college level product? Like you're not really out there recruiting to groom a talent to be really that good. You're just kind of like, okay, this dude's 6'5" and runs a 4.3. Throw him a fade. Like it isn't that much in depth about, and especially when it comes to winning, like Nick Saban doesn't develop quarterbacks. Why does he? He could win with literal Mac Jones and like Jacob Coker and stuff
Made
like
Mac Jones a first round pick.
exactly. And Bill Belichick, if anything, has like, oh, so you're telling me like I don't need to develop any draft picks? Thank you. You got rid of the hardest part for me. All I got to do is, can you play football? Yes. How much do you cost? That much? Cool. Want to go to UNC? Yeah. All right. Like I think he is going to be the funny enough, like the light when it comes to all this pandering and like ass kissing recruiting has become of like all these college coaches who have no NFL success have only nothing but relationships and are at like the beckoning call of recruits. There's going to be Bill Belichick who goes, Like, I don't care. You're cool. Like, there's 5 other recruits that do exactly what you do that are 3 stars. Like, you're gonna like if you the moment they cost too much, he's just gonna be like, I'm good, bye. Like, you're not gonna do this to me. I've done this on a bigger scale and a way more successful than you. And I think that's gonna be the best part about it is that I think he is going to be able to accumulate a lot of respect from these kids' parents based on his level of success and the fact that it's NFLU now over there. It isn't UNC anymore. It's just I'm going to get you to the
No, it's
NFL.
an NFL development program. That was his whole pitch, that he's going to have these kids ready to go to be in the NFL
Now this
or be
was
successful in private industry.
Now, this was like 10 years ago. This doesn't happen, like without a doubt. Like, I really think that the whole NIL structure, the fact that now you have a GM at your school nowadays, and the fact that there is relatively a salary cap now, like Bill Belichick probably couldn't even get past 8 wins at a college. Now it's kind of like, oh, that dude's a free agent. Cool, come here. Or like not even anymore. Like it could be a guy who's at a school, like because they're saying like they're going to be waiting for some of these teams to get knocked out of the playoffs, and he's going to go talk to the players. Like, hey, why don't you just come to UNC?
Transfer portal is open at all times, isn't it?
Yep, and that's and there you go. You get a free agent, and you can get a trade. It's a trade without giving up any capital. That's this insane part. So
And there's no
meaning like,
deadline. No deadline.
oh, okay. I'm gonna just go take this guy from this school. Bye. Come play for me. Why you want to play over
So
there?
my big concern isn't Bill himself. It's the people that he's surrounding himself with. Michael Lombardi, I don't trust him one bit. I think he, with Bill's with all of Bill's qualities, there's positive and negatives, just like there is with you and me. And I think Lombardi doesn't do enough to focus on the good ones and eliminate the bad ones. I think he just does whatever Bill says to do. And I think it's really important to have a collaborative mindset when you get into a football program. And I worry about Matt Patricia and Josh McDaniels with college kids. That's going to be scary. So I think Bill's going to get the most. He's going to coach circles around these guys at the ACC. Like, I have no
In
concern with
general,
that.
in all of college football, like he's literally gonna. There was only one person that was his equal, and that's literally Nick Saban, who's at a desk now. So
You think
like,
Nick Saban, he could be paid to leave his front office job at Alabama to come help Bill at UNC?
yeah, I mean, like it's to me, like I think it's no
Hey, Nick,
competition.
buddy, I need some help here. Recruiting some kids. You want to go back to
Exactly.
St.
Can you go put him on
Houses
that
and
boat?
get some babies?
Yeah, can you go put him on that boat to go inner tubing? Come to UNC. Why they want to go to Alabama? Ain't nothing to do at Tuscaloosa. Come on, stop it, Nick. You don't even live there.
You still got your Hellcat guy.
Exactly. Exactly.
So yeah, expectations year one for Bill Belichick at UNC. What do you think?
All eligible, like minimum. That's for
They
sure.
were this year. They're playing
Well, because
UConn at the Fenway Bowl.
and I mean we're getting into we're going to get into this. I mean, like college football, low key outside of the playoffs has become the NCAA tournament. Like it's just everybody and their mama can go to a bowl game. Nobody's going to watch these. Those ratings are going to suck outside of the alumni. But then, like when the playoff football happens, then people are going to tune in as they should. But I think it's just nowadays like, golly, like I'm watching a 6-6 team. Why? Like this, it's just so weird to reward mediocre behavior. You know,
I'll
like
take it a
why?
step further though. I think UNC could be even better than just below. I think they could win the ACC and get one of those buys.
Yeah,
Next
because
year.
like what's their biggest competition? Clemson.
It's
Like
Clemson and Belichick. I will go to my grave. He can coach circles around Davos Swinney.
but then also, what is Clemson's number one crutch? They don't believe in the transfer portal. Like, so it's, I think Clemson, like Dabo Sweeney's really going to get bit in the butt the longer this transfer portal plays out. He is, he's a great college coach. I'm going to give him that, especially he's a great BCS college coach. He's a great playoff college coach. But I think like the moment, like, cause that was one of those big first statements. Remember when NIL came out and all this?
I'll retire before I pay college. Yeah.
And well, guess what, dude? You either adapt or die. And Like Clemson, that there's a reason why they barely beat SMU
Didn't
because
they lose to the real USC, the Gamecocks?
exactly, and this is my whole point. Is just like there is these coaches out here that are like eventually are going to fall off the wagon and fall off because a team like SMU is somehow in the college football playoffs because they adapted to the situation at hand. Same with some of these other schools. I mean, Oregon being a number one seed, they adapted to the situation. All these schools that are in the college football playoffs adapted to the landscape of college football. And there's a reason why schools like Clemson, who came out and yes, you have a great head coach, but if you don't adapt to the situation, then we're like, you're going to be no better than just the 12th seed, like just that
That's
or
your peak,
whatever.
right?
Exactly. Like it is there's no, and I think that's if that's Bill Belichick's biggest competition is a guy who doesn't believe in the transfer portal, then to a guy who fully is embracing the fact that college
Dude,
is now.
Belichick would be the dirtiest college football recruiter of all time. I mean, we saw his antics in the NFL. Like even 5 years ago,
Exactly.
he'd be finding loopholes to to screw everybody else.
Exactly. You don't think like he could go get the starter? Like imagine him going to a college football playoff. And his transfer portal's always open, and he'll just go to the other team's quarterback. Hey, just take a snap for us. I already got the jersey. Let's do it.
Seriously.
We're fine. We're gonna win anyway.
But my final question before we move on to previewing these games and whatnot, getting into the nitty gritty of college football discussions. I feel like you and I may have contracting opinions on this. What do you think of this move as far as Belichick's legacy? Is it a shame that he's not in the NFL? And what do you think of him calling it quits unless you buy that unless you don't buy that he didn't come here to leave and he'll go to the NFL next year if somebody offers him. All of that just kind of packed into one here. I know it's a loaded question, but Belichick's legacy as a head coach, how is it impacted by this move?
I think it's NFL legacy, none whatsoever. Because at the end of he's not in the NFL anymore, so it's not like he's losing any games. But I think this is like all a bonus. Like the worst thing that could happen is that he only wins 3 games every year. And I don't think that's gonna happen. So like it's just like a side quest at this point, right? He already completed the main story many times over. He's done New Game Plus every single time for 30 some years, right? So now it's just okay, here's new DLC. I'm just gonna play that and see what happens. If I don't like it, I don't like it. If I'm good at it, I'm good at it. And I think like legacy wise, like I mean, he's starting one in college. That's what he's doing right now. But NFL wise, I mean, like at the end of the day, like the only thing that would like relatively boost him up if he develops like Hall of Famers. Like that would be
And we won't
the
know that for like 20, 30 years.
thing. And exactly like at this point, it would just be like if he how many first round picks come from Bill Belichick? How many of those first round picks pan out? How many of those first round picks become multiple Pro Bowlers, all Prolers? Like that's the only part of the NFL legacy he's attached to, which and quite honest, isn't really like going to affect his legacy whether he produces a single first round talent or every first round talent. So I think ultimately, like it's just boosting his resume as a coach in general doing this. The only way it would negatively affect him is if he just never goes above 500 in UNC. That would be the only way. Then it was like, oh, he's literally so washed he can't even coach college.
No, right. So my take is this, and it seems like you're taking Bill at his word when he says these things. I personally am not. I think when those stories came out, I don't know if you caught the Wickersham story earlier this week or last week, where Wickersham talks to a Belichick confidant about this move and how it's a giant FU to the NFL and all this. I think it's painfully clear that Belichick wanted an NFL job,
Oh
but
yeah.
he couldn't get one. Nobody wanted him for a number of different reasons, whether that's Kraft sandbagging him when other owners come talk to him like, hey, what's Bill really like? It could be Bill just being a dick in the interview in Atlanta where he takes offense to the GM I guess acting like he knows everything about the draft, which Belichick shouldn't be like taking offense to anybody knowing more than him in the NFL draft, because the last 7 years were horrible.
Mm-hmm.
We might have one or two players that are worth keeping around in Bill's last couple of draft class, Christian Gonzalez and Christian Barmore. I would take it a little more seriously if it wasn't so obvious that he was so bitter about having to go to college. Like, it feels like he wants to coach, which is great. And coaching college is more than a reasonable venue, and he's taking it seriously. Like, there's no half-assing it with Belichick here. I think when the report comes out that he had a 400-page like Bible about how he's going to run UNC, it's very clear that he's not half-assing it. Like, this is a very sincere effort from him. But it feels a little gross that this is his second choice. That he didn't want to do this. He wanted to be in the NFL. Like, he would coach the Jaguars and the Giants and even the Jets. He gave the Jets a phone call before accepting this job, seeing if they were interested, which kind of a shock to everybody because Belichick openly shits on Woody Johnson every chance he gets. But
yeah, but then that's the ultimate. But like, I think like when you meet those level of successful people, him, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, in like different aspects in life. Same with like Sean Payton, for instance, is the king of pettiness, and I think spite drives success to no other level. And if anything, now penciling UNC to be in the college football playoffs now, because I think that's what it really comes down to. I mean, like, yeah, he hates the Jets so much that I'll be the coach and I will leave after 1 year to tell Woody Johnson, "Oh, I just got you your Super Bowl and you couldn't do it without me." That's how petty he is. Like, and I think it because like the sandbagging and all that, without a doubt, but it's also like that's the price you pay for victory, right? You have if you want to be with Bill Belichick, that's who you have to sleep with every single night. You have to choose that is your head coach for the rest of your life. You have to deal with that pettiness. You got to deal with that level of like, oh, I know everything, like how he was. And guess what? But he has the resume to say these things. And that is kind of like the thing where, yes, it is annoying that the later years of this dude's career, and he has no draft picks to really show for it,
crash,
for him
right?
to say any of these things. But at the end of the day, I can't say that this man didn't win 6 Super Bowls. At the end of the day, I can't say that this man wasn't successful. And because like there's plenty of teams that don't even got one, and this man got 6. And that's kind of the thing. And it is true. It's just like he is not a person that's going to be liked. He is not a person who gives a crap about your revenue stream. He is not a person who cares about any of the things that owners care about. And I think that's why it's very rare that an owner was going to hire him because he disdains for all of that. He just wants to win. He doesn't want to increase your profits. He doesn't want to do this. He doesn't want to do that. At the end of the day, he just wants to win. And I think nowadays, especially when it comes to the new streaming avenues that we have, I mean, we're getting a game on Netflix now.
That's going to be a disaster.
Oh yeah, and I think that's everything that he can't stand. It's just like we're not playing for the love of the game anymore. We're playing for how much it cost, and he just wants to win. And like that's why I never thought that he was ever cared about like the salary and stuff like that. He just had to work within the budget that he had. That's why like half the time when it came about negotiations, just sign the damn deal, dude. We'll win and you'll make more money afterwards. Who cares? Like, and that's why I think like a big reason why he didn't get an NFL job. And then if he didn't get an NFL job, all right, cool. I'll go to college. I'm gonna go win. And then one of y'all eventually is gonna break. A bunch of y'all's eventually gonna be okay with sleeping with me as your head coach. And that's what I think. Because I mean, also like for instance, like how the hell does Mike Vrabel not have a head coaching job?
That's absurd.
I mean, like how many times that
I think he's going to get one on this.
Oh yeah, because well, good job, Raiders. You picked an idiot as a head coach. Because
you might get him anyways. You might get him anyways.
The fact that Antonio Pierce was not only became the Raiders head coach over multiple candidates who
Wasn't
were
it
very
because Max Crosby threatened to like demand a trade if AP wasn't
bye,
hired?
like bye. We're not winning with you. Probably wasn't going to win it without you either. Like, I mean, yes, I love Max Crosby, but like, dude, like the fact that also remember Mike Vrabel got fired and the Tennessee Titans wanted Antonio Pierce. Like, imagine that was their number one target to go get when Mike Vrabel left.
It sounds like
Are you
you'd have
kidding me?
driven him to the airport to make that happen.
Like, I'd have drove my Antonio Pierce over there. Like, golly almighty. Like, you're at best a ring of honor in the New York Giants football team. Like, you're not a good head coach. All you did was bring vibes one time. And it's also like, how many times, like, I'm happy that the Raiders back then didn't go with Rick Bisaccia as their head coach because he brought the vibes too. Everybody loved him. Same thing with it. Like, we're doing this again. You hired a really shitty head coach that nobody liked. It's easy to be liked after him. It's not hard, right? How
No,
many times have you
anything's better than Josh McDaniels, right?
exactly? Who was the Denver's head coach after him? John Fox?
Yeah,
You kidding me?
he was all right.
Like exactly.
Kubiak was better, obviously, but
Thank you. But like that, and that's why I'm saying like eventually like Bill Belichick, somebody's gonna eventually want to pick this dude. Like it's same thing with Mike Vrabel. Eventually, like with the lack of talented head coaches that we really have in the NFL, honestly, like look at the Carolina Panthers. That's who you picked. Look at the Raiders. That's who you picked.
Canales is getting better. The
Stop it.
Panthers have turned it around. You were giving Bryce Young credit earlier
I
about
was,
turning it
yeah.
around. Who do you think was behind that? It wasn't just Bryce Young and
David Tepper.
and the power. Of, yeah, okay, David Tepper.
No,
All
but
right.
like I mean, I think there's just an influx of bad NFL head coaches that
That's true.
eventually somebody is going to be like, we're willing to pay this price to be Bill Belichick's, like he's running this organization because the number one problem with NFL owners is their egos. It really is. Like a lot of people criticize Jerry Jones for having an ego. There's 31 other owners that have the same issue. The only difference is Jerry Jones just has no filter and just says it all the time. And there's other owners that constantly win. The Chiefs owner has that same ego. He thinks he built that dynasty. He really does. Like
Just ask Bob Kraft, who kept it all together for 20 years.
Exactly. Like it's the same. Like all these owners have that same ego. So eventually, one of them is going to be like, "All right, like might as well. What's the worst that can happen?"
The NFL really is king, man. We came in here expecting to talk college football. We just spent the last 10 minutes talking about the
topic is
NFL.
the NFL's greatest head coach. So
It's
now
true.
coaching in college.
Oh, we'll see how far we get before getting back to the NFL on this topic. Obviously, a big controversy coming into this was SMU after losing the ACC title game. They went and got a playoff berth anyway over Alabama. Alabama, SEC, the third team in the SEC, I do believe, didn't qualify for their conference championship game. SMU did. SMU was not punished for losing their game, but many people argue that Bama deserved the spot because Bama is a better team. Generally, what do you make of that conversation? What do you make of the implication or the idea that future instances like this one could provoke the SEC to separate from the NCAA and form their own playoff of sorts with, say, a Big Ten? That's been floated by some talking heads. I don't know if it's a serious idea, but it's certainly something that could happen and could get away with because let's be real. College football is very different from other college sports. And then to close it out, what improvements would you make to the CFB moving forward, if any? So let's just start from the top. Did Bama get screwed, and did SMU deserve their spot?
No, Bama did not get screwed. At the end of the day, win all the games that you can to prevent stuff like this. When we first had the BCS, we had only 2 teams cry about not getting into there, right? And then after that, we did the playoffs. Now we have 4 teams crying about not coming in. Now we have 12 people. So guess what? You increase the amount of complaints, the more opportunities you give to lesser teams. And now, before, when we had the BCS, what team did we hear the most about? UCF. Who cares? Now that we go into a 14
What,
playoff,
Conference USA over there?
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like you cried about the non-power 5 teams. Big whoop. You went 13-0 and you beat somebody in like the Peach Bowl. Like, okay. And now it's like, Bama, you lost 3 games. If you were so good, you would have won at least
And their
one
3
more.
losses were bad, weren't they? Like,
Thank you.
let
Oh,
me
we're
look.
a
Let me
better
go through
team.
their losses here. They lost
Texas,
to
I believe.
standby. They lost to Vanderbilt.
Okay, bye. Bye. I want to hear this conversation anymore, Alabama fans. Bye.
Lost to Tennessee.
Okay, who's in the college football playoffs?
Lost to Oklahoma, 24-3.
Thank you.
And
Thank
Auburn.
you.
They lost to Auburn.
Thank you.
No. They beat Auburn. Never mind. Their logos look too similar.
So you're telling me.
Oklahoma, Tennessee, Vanderbilt. They lost to Vanderbilt. Tell you the truth.
Thank you. So you telling me you lost to Vanderbilt and Oklahoma. Oklahoma, who's having an all-time bad year.
6-5 Oklahoma.
Exactly.
6-6, excuse
Like,
me. 2-6 in conference play.
bye. What are we talking about? Oh, we should have to do what? To do what? What you were gonna play who? You're gonna play Penn State and lose? Like, I have more confidence that SMU is actually gonna beat Penn State.
All 3 of their losses were in the conference.
Okay, thank you. Like, it's my whole point exactly. What are these teams crying about? You're crying about that we should reward you for having bad losses? No, win games. It is not that hard. It's simple, to be quite honest with you. Win games. Go undefeated, and you don't have these conversations. Now we're crying about, oh my God, but we beat this team, and we almost won this team. And
Well, the
this,
whole
yeah,
argument is, and this is, I'll give them credit. The SEC is the most serious college football conference in the nation. It's first, and the second is the Big Ten, and it's everybody else.
Okay, now let me disprove this. Ready? Okay, when Texas A&M and Mizzo first showed up to the SEC in the first year, they both went bowl eligible and beat the brakes out of most of the teams in the SEC.
Well, that was almost 10 years ago.
UT showed up to the SEC and did what? Okay, like that. Like, I'm sorry, SEC. Outside of LSU every once in a while and Alabama, who don't got Nick Saban anymore, the rest of your league was crap. Kentucky, crap. Vanderbilt, crap. Florida's been crap. Georgia has finally been good because they got rid of Mark Richt for the longest. Like, I understand you guys at SEC, like when the top is good and they win all the time when it was in the BCS Bowl era, right? And then also in the college football playoffs. But let's not forget, like, Ohio State won the first ever college football playoffs. They're not an SEC team. They played against Oregon. Wasn't an SEC team. Like Florida State. Remember, the last ever BCS championship game was lost by Auburn against Florida State, against Jameis Winston. So this narrative that the SEC, it's only pushed because ESPN paid all this money to promote the SEC to the level that in which it is.
So you don't think like a South Carolina or a Missouri, you move them to the ACC and they kick the shit out of everybody?
Well, Missouri already came from the Big 12.
I was just throwing names out there. You know me. I'm not the brightest college football mind here.
Okay, so like for instance, let's say
South Carolina. If you move South
let's
Carolina this year to the ACC, would they kick the crap out of everybody?
They'd probably be.
If you moved Alabama to the ACC, would they beat the shit out of SMU and Clemson? Probably.
We don't know. Like,
and the rest of that conference, like we just had a whole segment talking about why Belichick is going to coach circles around these clowns because they're clowns.
Kalen DeBoer hasn't had a good head start when he's not even in the college football playoffs. But I mean, like, for instance, okay, let's go get middle of the pack SEC teams. Is Vanderbilt gonna be any type of bowl eligible in other conferences?
If they move to the ACC, yeah, maybe.
But they'll never be like the number. If the SEC was as good as people say they were, Vanderbilt would cakewalk the ACC supposedly, or like Kentucky would be a 10-win team
I
somewhere
don't know.
else.
Kentucky's like really, you're going to the bottom of the barrel. We're talking mid tier. Like if LSU was an ACC team.
But that's not mid tier. That's like one of their premier teams.
So
Like,
we
you
need
know
to
what I'm saying?
define what mid tier is.
Oh, Gators.
The
That
Gators. Okay. I mean, they're kind of a cursed franchise the last 7 years, but
exactly. I mean, like Tennessee has been relatively decent as of late, but they've always been bad beforehand. But like A&M wasn't originally a ACC team, but then like they go in there and like Johnny Football destroys Alabama, like makes a joke of most of the SEC. So I always think it's so funny when like UT comes into this division and then UT owns it. But UT wasn't an SEC school for its whole history. Like it's like I said, the narrative of it is hilarious because I think at the end of the day, oh, you're so good. Okay, well then win your games. Like, oh, but we beat up on each other. You lost to Vanderbilt. Let's not stop it.
no, it's true. Losing to Vanderbilt, it's bad.
Yeah, and then the other one, you lost to Oklahoma. Oklahoma, who also isn't an SEC school, who showed up to your league this year and beat Alabama.
2-6 in conference play.
Thank you. End of this, like that for real. Like it's just it happens every year. Let me tell you this: the last time two SEC teams played in the national championship because y'all were so good was the most boring national championship in BCS college football history. LSU versus Alabama.
Was that the
The
Joe Burrow
rematch.
year?
That was the rematch of LSU was the number 1 seed. They beat Alabama 9-6 in the regular season. Alabama didn't play in their SEC championship game because LSU won. They were the number 1 overall seed. Alabama won 21-0 in the national championship. That was I think the Tyrann Mathieu year. No, it was maybe the year after that. But that was the worst BCS championship game of all time.
Oh, that was pre-playoff then. Okay.
Yeah. It was the worst one because they're like, oh, SEC so good. We're going to get the rematch of Alabama versus LSU. And then Alabama. And then the thing was, it wasn't even close. The fact that they won 21-0 is insane. And LSU was the number 1 team that year. I don't buy this. Like, good for you, Alabama, to cry about something. If anything, you know what SEC team got screwed the most? Probably Ole Miss. They're the ones who looks better on paper compared to Alabama.
Same record. Both 5-3 in the conference, both 9-3 overall.
And then Ole Miss's losses are to who? I believe they are.
The Ole Miss went 6-1 at home. They
Okay.
lost to Florida.
Okay, which bounced back by the end of the year.
They lost to LSU by 3.
Okay, LSU decent
They
team.
lost to Kentucky by 3.
And there you go. That's a bad loss. They at least didn't lose to Oklahoma, who was 2-6, who isn't an SEC school until now. So like I said, I think Ole Miss, if anything, like I understand, and that's so cool.
I mean,
to
they
see
lost to Kentucky that was 1-7.
Yeah, there you go. That's and the same thing. I don't like but the thing is, Ole Miss has a better like argument to have than Alabama does. Alabama is just a whole bunch of their fan bases and alumni getting mad that they're not a part of the show when they were the cream of the crop for the longest. I get it. As a USC fan, that was us. But guess what? We're not good. You're not good. You didn't win enough games.
Yeah, the Gophers showed you why you can't hang in the Big Ten.
Exactly. The same thing with us too. Like it's. I think the thing is about this whole like consolidating of all these different teams and leagues. Like what are we even doing? But that's the Pac-12 just being the Pac-12. To be quite honest with you, but I mean, like for instance, what if SMU mollywops Penn State?
That's
What
a
is
different
Alabama going to
conversation.
say?
Yeah.
Like that's the it's so funny because Alabama at the end of the day their only arguments through this whole conference has to be Texas has to beat out, Tennessee has to win out, and SMU has to get dominated by Penn State. And then that's their argument somehow. Is this like, oh look, all the teams that are in our conference are winning And if it was us in there, we would have put up a better fight than Penn State. I hope you win your bowl game. I really do, because if you don't win your bowl game handily and stuff like that, then like what's the point? The only good thing that the playoffs have really brought to me is the fact that there's now home games, home playoff games. Like that's awesome. No more neutral site. Like I think it's so funny because you really
Just for the
don't
first round, though. Everything else is a Peach Bowl. They're
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. But I mean, at the end of the day, I do think like so even like getting a first round bye isn't really that big of an advantage. I mean, like you play one less game, sure, but like getting a home playoff game, like UT's about to blow up. Like that's an insane atmosphere. Same with Penn State. Like it's gonna be fun. The only team I actually have a worry about that is at home is gonna be Ohio State.
Oh yeah, no, it's very treacherous in Columbus right now.
I actually think that's going to be the
A lot of the
biggest.
people going to this Tennessee game are they were probably sitting in the stands when they lost to Michigan.
It's going to be tough when they lose to Tennessee if they do that. I don't know, but I mean,
Well,
like
this
good,
is a prediction show. We'll get to it.
right? But
So you don't think the SEC is the best conference in college football?
I mean, it's so subjective. Like each and every year it changes. Like, yeah, are you the deepest? Sure, that doesn't mean like you're the best. You can have the deepest roster in the NFL, don't mean you win the Super Bowl. Like I that's how I feel. Like just because your team won from your division doesn't mean your division is the best. For instance, like there's been plenty when USC won its national championship. Was the Pac-12 the best league in college football? Probably not. Like I don't think that narrative always changes. Like for the history of the SEC, sure. Like you always were competitive in the SEC and bowl games. It was this record compared to everybody else's. Like that, yes, you can argue when it matters most, how many bowl wins did you all get? But like right now, like I don't know. I just know it ain't the ACC. It ain't the Pac-2. It ain't like all those other teams. Like I really do think like the Big Ten was probably much more deeper. The Big Ten I think got a big boost from getting all of its West Coast teams.
It's true.
I think that's probably the toughest division up there because like there's a lot of good teams over there.
Although the highest West Coast team was Washington. They went 6-6.
Yeah, there you go.
Shout out to Minnesota. All right, last question before we get into the game previews. What improvement or improvements would you make to the playoff moving forward, if any?
It won't ever happen, but the first two rounds have to be a home playoff games.
Yeah, okay.
If you earned a bye, play at home. Like if anything, it should have been the reverse. It should be like if you have to play in the first round, you got to play at a neutral site. If you got to bye, you got to play at home. But you won't do that for revenue. You're never gonna screw. They won't ever do that for the money.
No, right.
Like because
All right.
like how crazy would have been Oregon getting like a home field advantage. Like they don't now. So I won all these games and I don't get home field advantage. UT lost the game and they get to go be at home. So that would be my only change. Would be like I think the first two rounds should have been all non-neutral sites. It should have been best record gets home field advantage.
All right, let's go through this bracket. Go over the games. First one we're going to go over is number 12 Clemson heading to Texas to take on the number 5 ranked Longhorns on December 21st at 4 p.m. on TNT. Texas are 11-point favorites. The over-under is at 54.5. Quinn Ewers projected to be the starter. They're obviously coming off of their win against
their loss against Georgia, right?
Oh, that's right. They did lose it to Georgia. That's right. Okay, so they're playing pissed. They get the home game against Clemson. What are some of your initial thoughts and reactions or predictions for this game?
Fun fact, there is technically an Austin rivalry at quarterback here. You have Westlake versus South Lake Carroll at quarterback. They did play against each other already in high school. So Cade Klubnik versus Quinn
Who came out
Ewers.
on top there?
I think it was Cade Klubnik. He was a senior at the time. Quinn was a junior, I believe, at that. I think, or a sophomore. I do know that narrative that much. But UT's winning this game. This is Clemson as them winning. Funnily enough, was probably
Klubnik
Alabama's.
got the better of Ewers in their high school game. Westlake won the title by the score of 52-34.
There you go. But I would go with. I think Quinn wins this one. Whether
Why is
it's
that?
Quinn or Arch Manning, like I think UT's such a complete team. They really are. I just think Kirby Smart had really had their number. Kirby Smart is just he's a better head coach. I think UT had the better players. I just think that he outcoached Steve Sarkisian that in both games that they have played against each other. Um, Clemson, if anything, funnily enough, I think them winning is the big narrative about all of this Alabama crap. I really don't think they should have. They barely scraped by SMU. SMU is a good football team. They are, but I think that they're not. If they play 10 times out of 10, SMU probably wins like 7 out of 10 of those games. I think UT is probably going to come up on top of this one, probably about like a 14, 17 point score. I
Well,
think
they're an 11.5 point favorite. Is there a QB controversy with Texas? Would you start Arch Manning? Would you bench Quinn Ewers?
Right. Well, who's healthier? I think that's what it really comes down to. Quinn Ewers is the biggest problem with all his inconsistencies in his play has to do to his injury. He is the better. If they're both 100%, Quinn Ewers is the better quarterback. There's
Really?
no doubt about it.
A
But
lot of people would disagree with that.
no, it's clear that he's the better quarterback when fully healthy. But when he's playing with a nagging injury, he's just not the same. And I think that I would rather take an Arch Manning if he's the healthier of the quarterback, then I would take him. But whatever quarterback wins you the game, I would suggest they would put him in. And if it's Arch Manning, it's Arch Manning. If it's not, it's Quinn. But I think if Quinn isn't fully healthy, then go with Arch Manning.
Are you a Quinn Ewers guy?
Yeah, I do like his game. I just do think that the consistent injuries is the big issue that I have with him.
Well, I just didn't know if you liked him as a player, as a prospect, or
Prospect wise, yes, I do think he's a relatively decent quarterback in a very weak quarterback class. Like I said, the only issue is that he's probably benefiting the most that he didn't have a really good season this year, ironically enough, because if he goes to a team like the Giants, like he will be broken in half and he will either never see the field or always be hurt or has to play through nagging injuries with a very untalented roster, and that would destroy his development skills. The Jets did that forever for a lot of quarterbacks.
since
And I
Chad
think
Pennington.
Sam Darnold. So like that's what I would say with like Quinn. I think he actually, funnily enough, benefited the most, not like balling out this year. He was a Heisman hopeful in the beginning of the year. A lot of people penciled him in as the #1 quarterback. He's still a great quarterback. I do like him as a prospect, but I just do think that when he's hurt, even if it's like a small injury or I think somehow he just never always like it always bothers him mentally.
It's
And I
easy
feel
to
like
get in his head. Yeah.
that is his only thing that I think that his biggest thing is that he isn't like not mentally. I think mentally tough. He's not. I think like if he does get hurt, it's gonna like he makes a built-in excuse like, And I also
Right.
don't like the attitude of like, oh, I cheer for Arch Manning when I'm not on the field. F that. Like, no, you're the dude or you're not the dude. Be like Aaron Rodgers. Be like Brett Favre.
Treat him
Be
like
like,
family. Yeah.
like I don't care about him. I want to be the best player. Like, granted, yes, he's saying all the right things, and God bless him for that. But like, come on, dude. You're gonna say that when you're in the NFL? Oh, I love Drew Lock. Drew Lock's great. Both of us can start. No,
Yeah. All right.
no.
Up next, what do I have written down? Speaking of SMU, number 11 SMU headed to Penn State. That game will be played earlier on the 21st at 12 p.m.
Penn State
in
still not
Penn
getting a
State.
whiteout night game for this year. They're pretty
Yeah.
upset about that because they thought that they would at least get that as a home game.
Penn State 8.5 point favorites. Drew Aller is the quarterback for PSU. Obviously, he announced that he was coming back for the 2025-2026 season. What do you make of this game?
So I know before this we were talking about this, and I'm going to bring this up. There
All right,
is this tier in college where it's like you have a really good coach, but they could just never win big games. The Bo Pelini tier, where 9-win Bo Pelini for the longest at Nebraska. We'll get you 9 wins, no matter what. And mind you, that's great for Nebraska right now. Nebraska would kill to have Bo Pelini back to win 9 games straight every single year and be a relatively Big Ten title contention. That is James Franklin. James Franklin is very much, I'll get my team to 10 wins, 11, maybe like 9, and all this, and I will have all this talent around me, but I will never win big, important games. I got SMU taking this one. I don't think he wins. I don't think he beats SMU.
Really?
I do. I just, for some reason, I think that's just James Franklin's crutch. He just can't win important games. And even when he in those games too, sometimes when it is some of those big important games, it's just ugly wins. Like Drew Allard has regressed heavily this year. That's also I think if he was projected to be the top quarterback that he was supposed to, then maybe be a different story. But this year he's been pretty bad. Their best weapon offensively is a tight end. Their running game is pretty decent as well too. But ultimately, I think SMU is probably going to beat them just because the fact that I think that James isn't a good coach in big games. For the longest, it's our year. It's our year. It's our year. It's our year. I knew the big reason why I also know that he isn't that good of a coach. His best ever team probably is when he lost that Rose Bowl to Sam Darnold when he had Saquon Barkley, and he, mind you, had that game in the bag. We were not a good SC team that year. And with the amount of talent that he had that year and the fact that they lost to Sam Darnold like that, I'm just man, for some odd reason, I just think that there's something that he does through his day-to-day ritual when he does against Ohio State or an Oregon that's different when he's playing against Illinois. Just do what you do against Illinois, a team you're supposed to be.
Even Minnesota gave him a run for his money. They only lost by a point.
It's there's something about it where it's just once the game gets too tight for him, he's just I don't know what to do anymore.
And obviously he dropped the Big Ten title to Oregon. They lost 45-37.
Yep. Same thing. I just think that when it comes to big games, he just doesn't do well. He lost to Ohio State, a team that probably, they were kind of a little bit exposed there for Penn State not being a national championship hopeful, which is funny enough. They have the easiest bracket supposedly to get into because they would have to play Boise State or Arizona State afterwards if they were to win.
Stand by.
I think.
If Penn State were to win, they'd be playing Boise. Yeah,
exactly. So that's considered the easiest path to the. But I funnily enough, I don't think that it won't be easy for him. It's funny enough. If any other team was in that spot, if UT was right there, UT is pencil it in, dude. UT's about to cakewalk these two teams because I think UT's a very good team when they're out talenting people. When they have more talent, they'll win. But when it comes to X's and O's, UT, I think Steve Sarkisian's still a little bit on the fence on that, especially when it comes to a more adaptable head coach. He's just happy that Georgia, that he's not going against Georgia in the first round. But
well, we can roll right into Tennessee. Actually, you said you had SMU taking this one in an upset. They are 8-point underdogs. If you want to bet that, plus 260 money line. We're gonna go ahead. We're gonna talk about UT Tennessee headed to the. What do they call Ohio State's?
The Horseshoe.
The Horseshoe. They're headed to the Horseshoe to take on the Buckeyes. That game is going to be happening on the 21st at 8 p.m. on ABC/ESPN. OSU 7-point favorites. All right, Ryan Day's got to wash his hands and move on after the Michigan lost earlier this earlier this month. Obviously, it's going to be an uneasy day in the horseshoe, to say the least. They got Will Howard at quarterback. Their leading rusher for the year was Quinshon Judkins, and their leading receiver was Jeremiah Smith. And obviously, UT comes in at 10-2, ranked 9th. Ohio State ranked 8th. Like I said, OSU 7-point favorites. What do you make of this one?
Depending on what Ohio State wants to do offensively, it depends on whether or not they're going to win this game. They have two contrastly different spread offense mindsets. So Ryan Day is very much in the Urban Meyer and the guy. He used to be the head coach for U of H football team when they had them there. It's very much a run first spread offense. So when they had Ezekiel Elliott there, like the big reason why they won their national, it's because they're going to spread you out wide. So you're going to be in these smaller packages, like smaller players, and they're going to just run power football up your gut, and it's going to hurt you because you have all these like very smaller players in comparison against that. And so I think, but then you have Chip Kelly, who's an air raid spread guy who doesn't really believe in running the ball. He was also very finesse spread offensive kind of mind when he was at Oregon.
For all you New Englanders at home listening, Ryan Day and Chip Kelly, both residents of New Hampshire, alumni of the University of New Hampshire. With me, I graduated.
There you go. So I think that they're very contrastly different. Even though it's the same offense as it looks on paper, it's two different mindsets about going about the game. And Will Howard is very much predicated to Ryan Day's level of offense. Same with like Henderson and Judkins. Like, I mean, the reason why they picked him up in the transfer portal was because of it was like that. And then all of a sudden, I think it's just like you have two different chefs in the kitchen. One wants to cook Mexican food, one wants to cook Italian food. So what does the restaurant serve? Burgers. So like it's at the end of the day, decide what type of offense do y'all want to be and stick to that. I think that's a big reason why they lost against the Michigan game. Big reason why they lost against Oregon was just like, what type of offense are we? And let's pick and choose and let's stick to it. And depending on whether or not they realize that identity, I think that whether it determines or not that who they want to be, because they're losing internally. The team is loaded. There's no doubt about it. This is a national championship hopeful level team. The problem is the inconsistency of Ryan Day as its time as being a head coach, from having no head coaching job to all of a sudden being the coach at Ohio State. Like, that's a huge jump. And also the fact that he's never beat Michigan as well, too. And he has a very loaded team, a very good defensive team as well, too. I really do like a lot of the players prospect-wise. But it's just the level of identity of just like who they want to be as, and whether it determines not like a team like Tennessee knows who they are.
I was about to say, how do you think that Tennessee matches up?
I think it also comes down to you have a very young quarterback at Tennessee, and that's what it's going to be. It's going to be how many mistakes is he going to make? Whether or not determines whether or not Tennessee wins. If Tennessee gets up on top easily, you probably win. Ohio State is not a team that likes to play from behind, because then at that point, you have the two different ideologies going against each other. Ryan Day wants to run to set up the pass and beat you down so that way you're tired at the end of the game, where Chip Kelly is like, oh, we're down, so we need to keep passing the ball. So I think it comes down to, if Tennessee gets on top early, like at least a 10-point lead or a 2-score lead ahead, it's going to be a very tough climb for Ohio State. Now, they have the talent. I just think that this is probably the most even game, I would say, on the schedule. Like, I think, and who do you say was favored? Ohio State was favored?
Ohio State by 7, yep.
Because they're a touchdown game. Okay. Well, they are a home team. But Tennessee's a little bit more predicated to playing. Like, that is a team that they don't want to go blow for blow with offensively, I think, when it comes to running the ball, because I think Tennessee is going to punch them in the mouth just as hard as they punch back. So I think I'm going to go with Tennessee winning by 3 on this.
All right.
Or if Ohio State gets it right, like, they may win by like 21.
If you want to bet on that one, plus 230 on Tennessee's money line. If I'm not mistaken, have you bet all underdogs so far?
I took SMU. I took Texas to beat
You
the
took
shit
Texas. Okay.
of Clemson because I think that's the best team.
All right, let's close it out with there's a lot of conflicted people in watching this one on the 20th at 8 p.m. Eastern on ESPN, NBC, ABC. The people who watch Indiana for college hoops and then Notre Dame for football, it's a little bit of a conflicted
Yeah, it's
interest
a
here.
little, and it's like relatively a rivalry game too, technically.
That I don't know, but you
It's
have
funny
Notre
because
Dame, the
both
Fighting
two
Irish.
teams in the state of Indiana. You'd
True.
think.
You have the Notre Dame Fighting Irish hosting the number 10 Indiana Hoosiers. Kind of a feel-good story throughout the season.
Coach Sig, baby.
Obviously, both teams have been super impressive. Notre Dame in their last 5 have just been crushing people.
Yeah.
They put up 49 points or more in 4 of their last 5. It's just unbelievable stuff. And Indiana was undefeated till he lost to OSU by a lot. In the big house right before Thanksgiving there. So what do you make of this game? The matchups, how do you feel? Is Notre Dame for real? Should they be considered
What are they favored by?
Notre Dame is favored by 8.5.
That's a bit low. I think Notre Dame's like a low-key silent killer. They've not been getting national exposure because they are an independent, but they've been beating the brakes out of people lately. I
The
think
big criticism is they don't really play anybody. They only played 3 ranked teams.
that is also.
4. Excuse me, 4.
And who did they play the last 4 games of the season? Who was they? I know
It was at USC.
Yeah, we were a bad team.
Army,
Bad
who
team.
was impressive. I mean, 19th ranked isn't horrible.
Yeah.
Virginia, Florida State, Navy.
Okay. So my thing is Notre Dame, if we're gonna wrap this up to a subject that we talked about beforehand, is
Go
very
ahead.
much like Alabama's out of conference schedule. They love beating up all these very bad teams. Because they're a non-conference team, it's also very hard for them to schedule conference opponents. I mean, it was nice when they did sign with like the Big Ten, I think at one point, where it was like Michigan and Michigan State and stuff like that. I think first and foremost, Notre Dame, how in the world are you not a Big Ten school? I feel like that is very much like a marriage made in heaven. There's so many great rivalry games already slated for y'all, but I guess whatever, be independent. I think they have been sneakily good, but at the same time, it's kind of like this
It's
is the
hard to take them
same.
seriously.
It is, but at the same time, you beat what's in front of you.
It's true.
You know, and unlike other teams who do schedule like the biggest outlier when Notre Dame played against Alabama and they got whooped in that national championship game is that Notre Dame was the worst undefeated team of all time because they almost lost to a third string quarterback at USC that year. They were barely winning games that year. Where this Notre Dame team, I think it's like we're just beating the brakes out of everybody. Like we are a more talented team. And I think that is Indiana's biggest issue is that when they go against a very talented team, that it's not like it's at the end of the day, you can only coach so much. There's only so much talent that's at Indiana compared to Notre Dame. Like if you took coaching out of it, Notre Dame is going to win. I do think Cignetti is probably a better coach than Marcus Freeman. Marcus Freeman just having very much limited as a head coach in hit, like also landing that big job with no head coaching experience was insane. Maybe a guy Ohio State should probably have higher because that's it. That's the team he said that he would only leave Notre Dame for. But I take Notre Dame on this one. I think they're probably going like 20 points. I think
You don't give Indiana much of a chance here.
I just think they're very much like they're very good. Like if Indiana played like Tennessee, sure. If Indiana played SMU, sure. If Indiana played Penn State, sure. If they played Clemson, sure. But I think when it's talent on talent, I think there's just only so much you can do in coaching when it comes to college football. Like
And
in the NFL,
to be
in
fair,
NFL,
Indiana's schedule wasn't all that trying either.
mhm.
Um,
but coach,
their highest opponents were Michigan and Ohio State.
yeah, and Michigan was a very bad football team this year, and they did play a lot of easy Big Ten teams this year. They did avoid Oregon. They avoided like a lot of the bigger teams. Like they
Minnesota.
didn't play Penn State. Like, I mean, even that, like exactly, like they didn't go out and go deal with the rigors of like going to play a late night November game in Minnesota, right, or something along those lines.
Listen, PJ Fleck can give teams hell.
He does. That's the only thing. That's the only reason why he's still employed is because he gives back. He gives good teams a running for their money. But I think that's Indiana at the end of the day. Their biggest thing is that just they don't have enough talent to keep up with the Joneses. They really don't. They'll beat up any other team on the schedule outside of Texas and I would say arguably Ohio State, like Texas and Ohio State, without a doubt. They couldn't beat them or any of the teams. I would even argue that they probably even if they somehow made it and they had to play against Oregon was it Arizona State? They probably beat Arizona State. But I just think it comes
So
down to
the college football bracket is weird, where they don't reseed afterwards. So Indiana, if they had beaten Notre Dame, they're just gonna go play Georgia and die.
yeah, good luck. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like it just comes down to the reason why. Look at all the teams that are up here outside of Boise State and Arizona State. These are teams that acquire talent, teams that are a talented roster. The two biggest outliers that are on here is Tennessee, not a very good. I mean, not Tennessee, Indiana. They don't have a lot of talent on there, and or Arizona State and Boise State, not a lot of talent. They just win, but like I think at the end of the day, your national championship winner is going to be a team that has a lot of talent on there.
All right, let's run through the bye week getters. They deserve attention. They were the best teams throughout the year. They won their conference. They got their bye. We'll start from the bottom and go to the top. Arizona State. They obviously dog walked Iowa State for their Big 12 championship first year in, and they go ahead and get it done.
Yeah,
they had a fun season.
Yeah, it was a good season. I mean, a very young head coach as well too. They were very bad last year.
Thanks, Herm Edwards.
He was the head coach there last year too, I believe.
Was he?
Guy, I believe Herm Edwards left, and I think this is his second year as head coach.
I thought it was his first.
And
oh no, you were right. You're right.
Yeah, they didn't
have last year.
They were a really bad team last year. And very good bounce back season, but I do think at the end of the day, when it comes to talent, like they are just not going to keep up with the Joneses on that one. Same with Boise State. Boise State is really good at beating up really, really mediocre teams, and when they acquire a good talent, they're going to run it to the ground. Like when they had Kellen Moore, was it Austin Pettis and Titus Young? Like they had more talent than most teams that they were playing against back then. Same right now they had a Heisman hopeful. It was the closest Heisman race since I think 09 or whenever they said it was. And Gentry is a very good running back. But guess what? When they're going to play a team that's going to punch them in the mouth and is bigger people than them, like Boise State can only recruit so much. They probably have an offensive lineman that's probably 270 pounds. Well, when they're faced against a D lineman who's touching 300, it's at the end of the day, the talent will always come up on top when it comes to teams like that. That's why it's very hard to have a Cinderella story in college football, because Cinderella schools like the Boise State versus Oklahoma was very much a lot of trick plays going on, and it was kind of like, what's going on here? And it's also like big brother not thinking little brother can hit back.
Right.
And you catch them on an off day like that. But most of the time, like national championship games are won and lost by who has a lot of talent, and then who can coach that talent the best as well too.
So you think Arizona State's just a little too limited?
Oh yeah, and then I think at the Big 12, whoever was going to represent them was never going to. They like good for you to getting an automatic bye, but golly almighty, like does Texas?
I do like some of their pieces. I think they have a real quarterback there. I think Sam Leavitt has some edge. I think he has some it. I really look forward to watching the rest of his development. And Cam Scatabo is a beast. He's not going to be a good NFL running back, but he's a great college running back.
He's
You
great.
can't tackle the
It's a
guy.
great.
He runs full effort.
This is a very good college football story and a college football team. It's just not a good national championship. Like, yeah, you got to give them, like, they're the number 14, but are they really? Like, I could argue, like,
no, right. If we stay true to rankings, they're probably more like where SMU, Indiana, Tennessee are.
Mm-hmm. But even then, I would say Indiana and Clemson and SMU probably could, like, you would even give those a 50-50 shot to beat Arizona State.
No, right. Arizona State's playing hard and tough, and they can win for sure. But you just don't see them making it past like the second round.
No, and then
especially if they play Texas, they might not even make it out the Peach Bowl.
Oh my God! I think if Texas has to play Arizona State, they may put 38-0 on them. Like that game could get really ugly, really fast. Like because the thing is about Scatabo, the running back. Like Texas is a very tough team to run against, and if you get rid of 50% of your offense like that, then you're telling that young quarterback, "Hey, go play now, go throw the ball," and then Texas knows. Just pin my ears back and rush the quarterback because they ain't running the ball no more. It's game over. And where Texas can like run the ball, they can pass the ball, short, long, intermediate passing game as well for them too. Like I just think same thing with Boise State. 70% of their offense to like 90% of their offense is running the ball. Well, when you're going against teams who have bigger personnel, like Ohio State's D line is insane. Let Boise State try to run the ball against them. It's not going to happen. And then you're going to ask.
Jonte did score a couple of touchdowns against Oregon, didn't he?
Yeah, but then at the end of the day, who's the number one seed?
Oregon.
Like, yep.
But they also got to buy.
And but I think it's, and we go down to Georgia and Oregon. I mean, Georgia, what version of Carson Becker?
Let's not blow past Boise here, all right? Maybe the feel-good story of the college football playoff here with their.
No, Indiana is. I think Indiana would be that feel-good story.
I don't know. Boise State, the blue field, people go nuts for that.
Well, they won't see it in this college football. Right. If they had my idea, that I would have actually.
No, what if they can just paint the field blue at the what bowl they play in? The Fiesta Bowl. What if they just paint State Farm Stadium blue for 1 week?
Do it. Ask for it. And I'm sure they would have.
I hate that blue field, man. I do.
Yeah, it's just tacky.
That's so gimmicky.
Thank you. Which is all of Boise State's career. It's just being a gimmick school because it's in Idaho.
Nobody goes to Idaho.
Thank you. And then like the only reason why that state exists is because you have good potatoes. Like, come on now.
Do they have good potatoes, or are they just known for potatoes?
That's it. They grow really good potatoes out there. But
can you confirm that Idaho potatoes are different?
I can't confirm that. I don't
know right. What if all they have is potatoes? So they like New Hampshire doesn't have anything but granite. So Granite State.
There you go. Okay, there you go. So it wins by default. You're right. I don't know of anywhere else can grow potatoes. I'm sure they can, but they just marketed it that way. Just like Boise State markets itself as a very cool blue stadium. Big whoop. I don't know. I'm just not a big fan of like, they're not a complete team necessarily. They just, hey, we have a way better running back. We're just going to literally ride it until the wheels fall off for him. And that's it. He was a Heisman hopeful, and Heisman hopefuls do what Heisman hopefuls do, elevate bad teams or elevate good teams to great teams, when in reality, like you take away Gentry. Is that the number 3 team in the nation?
No.
Okay. I think to me I think if you could take your best player away from a team, like they should be relatively still within that margin. And when it comes to the playoffs, take Quinn Ewers off of Texas, put in Arch Manning, still relatively the same team, you know.
But how do you feel about them going wire to wire with Oregon earlier in the year?
I mean, I think it just comes down to like, I think Oregon pretty much looked at it as just like, Oregon at the end of the year didn't look too well either, but also Oregon is a very much, their defense isn't really all that either. I think they handle the Big Ten very well, though. They are undefeated and they are the number one team. But I do think that ground and pound has really like deteriorated them big time. But at the end of they're still in it though. They're still winning and they're still handling all these trials and tribulations of college football season. So I do give them a little bit of an edge on that part because that was the biggest concern with all Pac-12 schools and all teams on the West Coast is that you don't face people punching you in the mouth each and every day where that's how they win football games. Where Oregon has now can throw the rock all over the place, who can run the ball and whose defense has done that, but I just think that their defense is a little bit more bend don't break type. It's kind of like they can take the blows but not too many.
So you have SMU winning against Penn State. They would host not host, but they'd play SMU in the Fiesta Bowl on New Year's Eve.
That would be Boise State and SMU.
Yeah.
It wouldn't go to. Oh, so that means what? Because yeah, you're right. They don't reseed.
Yeah, they don't reseed. Yeah.
Boise State probably. I mean, like that. A lot of college football fans probably don't want that game. They would probably want Penn State to win because, like, also same thing with a big thing about Cinderella stories. Most non-big alumni fan base teams do not provide good ratings on TV, and you would not want that. But then that would probably be a very much a 50-50 game for me. I would take Boise.
So you're gonna take a giant crap on Boise State just to say,
yeah, but the thing is, it's just like Boise State is just like okay, well, they face somebody relatively close to their competition, as in in the talent pool that SMU is. I think like, oh, well, SMU hasn't been punched in the mouth all season long, and then they're gonna go against the Heisman, like one of the biggest front runners and best running backs that ever touched college football, and handle that. That's different. Where like Penn State, who's been punched in the mouth most of it's like, okay, well then like that's like let's just stop this running back and we'll call it a day. But then that comes down to James Franklin not being able to be a good coach.
Yes, so James Franklin's already out of the picture as far as what you think is going to happen. So, a gun to your head, SMU, Boise State at the Fiesta Bowl. What are you thinking?
Boise by 3 points.
Oh, so you got them going all the way to the Orange Bowl there.
Mm-hmm. And then
and then we can go talk about Georgia. And you have did you have Indiana winning or Notre Dame? I can't remember.
Oh, Notre Dame. Okay,
winning. So you'd have Georgia and Notre Dame in the Sugar Bowl. But let's talk about Georgia a little bit. Obviously, Carson Beck is done for the year, right? He's done.
Which is good because that was their biggest handicap.
I agree. So they have their backup. What's his name? Kind of looks like Georgia Drake May.
I think it's like number 14. His name's Hudson, right?
Georgia.
He was also a top relatively rated recruit as well. Carson Beck, I mean, like
Gunnar Stockton.
Gotcha.
He looks like Georgia Drake May. Have you seen a picture of this guy? He
wears number 14, don't he?
Yeah.
My whole thing is I never once. First of all, if you're a draft Nick and you have ever thought Carson Beck was going to be a good NFL quarterback, please don't ever evaluate talent ever again. He never was that. He was just always surrounded by talent. He was just, which, to be fair, like Kirby Smart is literally making Alabama at Georgia. Like he's literally collecting quarterbacks that are just doing the job, never like that are that talented. Because when he had really talented quarterbacks, they never performed well at Georgia. Like Jacob Eason. Jacob Eason was a very good quarterback. You know who beat him out? God, he wore number 11, and then he ended up being drafted by the Bills because he was like undefeated. But it's a quarterbacks that are like very limited, that are very much like system QBs are always what Georgia like relatively now is good with. Just hand the ball off. We have a very strong offensive line. We have a very strong defense. We have a stupid amount of talent. Just do that. And I think Carson Beck, his NFL scout evaluation on him, because he was a highly talented guy coming into this season, did way too much. Like, oh, it needs to be me. It doesn't need to be the team no more. And what ended up happening? Throws all these bad even both games against UT, he sucked and they won. Like Carson Beck was not a good quarterback this year. Like outside of beating up bad teams, like when they out talented people. But Carson Beck, I think that was their biggest handicap is him. He has a hot girlfriend on Instagram. He like getting all in his head about he was going to be the number one overall pick this year.
Oh, yeah, that all went to shit, didn't it?
Yeah, because it showed its true colors. Like the moment, and that was funny because I do think because Kirby Smart probably at the beginning of the year said, "All right, we're going to ride with Carson. Carson can do whatever he wants this year. We're going to prove that we can win with him like that." And I think ultimately Kirby's like, "Gotta find out the hard way that we can't." Luckily, we beat UT. Because if they don't beat UT both times, Georgia is on the same conversation with Alabama of not being in the college football playoffs because they trusted Carson Beck out of all people too much.
So,
but
yeah,
that's but that's like Georgia's the new Alabama and the level of like there's just a 5-star behind everybody. Like their team is so loaded, it doesn't matter. Me and you could win a national championship playing quarterback for them. Like honest to God. So I got Georgia. Like they are, and the fact that UT hates the fact that like if they have to play against them because that's literally their kryptonite. I think UT is probably the best team in college football with a healthy Quinn Ewers, and also like even with Arch Manning, they're a relatively decent school too as well. Like they are a very good football team. But I just think that Georgia is just straight up their kryptonite. I think when Coach Steve Sarkisian has to go against a coach who has won before in different, like while at Alabama, and he's the better of the Nick Saban disciples in Kirby Smart, because Kirby Smart is the closest thing to Nick Saban. He's just going to sit back. He's going to coach what he coaches, which is defense, and he does very well with his personnel staff as well too. Where I think Steve Sarkisian, because he's an offensive guy, he kind of has to feel like his team needs to have a little bit of his identity to it, and then sometimes that gets carried away into it. Or Kirby Smart is like, I'm gonna just let my dogs hunt at the end of the day. We're gonna win. I don't care if we win by 1, I don't care if we win by 50. Like that's how his mentality.
You don't think Gunnar Stockton being a first-time quarterback for Georgia here is going to be a huge factor?
No, it's just the same thing like what Alabama was back in the day. The moment Greg Elroy left, did they think A.J. McCarron was, oh, no, it's a new guy? No, just follow suit.
Jalen Hurts and Tua?
Yeah, same thing. Follow suit. Do what we do. Hand the ball off. Give the ball to your biggest playmakers and call it a day. That's all we have to do. And
right.
Also look at the biggest drop off too with Carson Beck the moment he lost 2 very good NFL players, Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey. And look what happened to Carson Beck. All of a sudden he can't pass the ball. All of a sudden he's like that to me was like the big indictment of why I never liked him was Brock Bowers, who is a generational tight end talent, Ladd McConkey, who is look at him at the Chargers. Unbelievably good.
Don't get me started, dude. We traded the pick to the Chargers that we got stuck with Jalen Polk.
Yeah, and then now look at Carson Beck without either one of them. All of a sudden he can't pass up. All of a sudden he's not the first overall pick.
Now he's like a third rounder at best. Yeah,
developmental fifth.
Like number 1 team, undefeated, number 1 ranked Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
Dylan Gabriel had a fantastic year. I don't know if he's an NFL player, but he's a very fun college quarterback to say the least. I think he's too small, to tell you the truth, to play in the big leagues.
Too small. He's left-handed and he's old.
Yeah, 2000. Ugh.
Yeah, because he's in the relatively older age because he played at UNC. He played at UCF. Played at UCF, Oklahoma, now Oregon.
Obviously, running back Jordan James, 1,200 yards, 15 touchdowns, and Ted Johnson, the leading receiver, with 866 yards and 10 touchdowns.
That they have like a really good wide receiver. I think it's Evan Stewart, the one from Texas A&M there that has not popped off all season. He has been the biggest disappointment probably in all of the college football transfer portal.
What did you say his name was?
I think it's Evan Stewart,
Evan
right?
Stewart, yep.
Yep, he was the number one wide receiver one time in high school football. Went to Texas A&M when they had that huge recruiting class.
Was a no-show in the Big Ten
Yep.
championship.
Which was funny. He played 33 snaps at wide receiver and caught nothing, no targets.
And just one catch against Washington.
Exactly. Like it's crazy to think that
Had
that
a
was
good
the
game
number
against
one.
Wisconsin, though.
Yeah, he pops off every once in a while. Like he has the 5-star ability, but it's Oregon doesn't need that. And Oregon has been able to maintain the number one thing. They've been had that target on their head for the whole season. Their Dan Lanning is a very good head coach early on to his career. I would like to see him somewhere else personally. I do like to see that because I do feel like Oregon is a little bit like, as much as he's trying to make them a physical team, there's still the mantra of Oregon being a very finesse team. Like they are very much like a not. They rolled with the punches this year. I think they really kind of shaved off that moniker about them, but they are a relatively good complete team. They're playing on all cylinders and they're winning all the games that they need to win. There's not a lot that you could say against them, really. I just do think that maybe Georgia, maybe UT would be a team that would give them fits because, and same with Ohio State. And remember, the reason why Ohio State lost that game, they lost by one, and also because Will Howard doesn't know how to play football from time to time or know the rules. But I really do think that Oregon they are a very good team. They're a very complete team. So I do think that they are also up there for being the big national champions. Like it wouldn't surprise me if they do win, but it also wouldn't surprise me if they would lose to a team like Georgia, lose to a team like UT. Like it's that Dylan Gabriel's a very excellent college level quarterback. Like he's just one of those guys like Kellen Moore. Like they just put up dumb stats, and you're just like, how they make it in the NFL? It's like, well, the dude's like 5'5". He's left-handed, and he has a big resurgence because I think he did suffer like a really bad leg injury when he was at UCF, and then he went to Oklahoma when Oklahoma was terrible, and then came to Oregon. He's been around the block
Yeah,
for a hot.
he straight broke his leg in 2021.
Yep. Because I remember him at UCF was a very good quarterback.
UCF and broken legs. Remember that one guy that they used to have, Mackenzie Milton?
Mackenzie Milton. Yep. Mm-hmm.
He was
And then also
destined for big things, wasn't he?
the only thing I don't like about Dylan Gabriel is that he's wearing number 8. That's the only thing I don't like about it. I feel like that number should be retired.
Yeah, he
It's a
should have
great
showed some respect to
And then,
Mariota.
Dylan Gabriel's also from Hawaii, so
Oh, okay. It was
big reason why he wanted to play homage to it, but at the same time, like Oregon
We're
Ducks,
18. We're 18.
literal greatest ever player of all time went there. Even though it was fun, it was so funny, right? Like as good as Marcus Mariota was at Oregon, like their greatest ever Oregon Duck. Oregon loves Herbert more than they love Marcus Mariota, and
Isn't
that's
that
because
crazy?
Herbert. Yeah, because Herbert's I think 10 minutes away from the stadium. That's where he grew up.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. He like as funny as that is, like Marcus Mariota probably is their greatest ever Oregon Duck of all time. Justin Herbert is God to them.
And Justin Herbert also sick in the NFL.
Oh yeah, I
Dude's
love
a
him.
dog. He's a dog.
And also, I mean, but the only thing is though about Dan Lanning, we're gonna talk about like anybody in the transfer market, man, dude. Oregon has like they have hit big time on quarterbacks recently. They are 2
another
for 2 in the
quarterback
NFL.
went into the transfer portal today from Ohio State. Air Noland.
Oh, what a name!
Yeah, he's leaving Ohio State.
Yeah. Because I mean, like every single quarterback Oregon has had since like Dan Lanning, look, Justin Herbert has tore it up. Bo Nix tearing the NFL up right now.
Seriously, yeah.
Like Dylan Gabriel has been a very good college coach. Like it's been a very like if I'm a transfer, like Oregon is a very good place to, especially if were a highly touted recruit or like had a relatively good 2 to 3 years.
Penn
Like
State just
go
lost
there.
their backup, and everybody seems to love that guy. I forget his
They
name.
need like a guy like, man, who would be like a good, like somebody who's been like down bad. Like if Drew Allard was like, oh, I'm coming back, but I'm going to Oregon, like I would consider like, oh, that dude's probably going to be a first round pick now. Like somebody like that was highly touted, but then ends up going to Oregon. Like if a guy like Spencer Rattler would have went there instead, well, he probably would have never beat out Bo Nix, but I think
All
something
right.
like that. I think Oregon has
Let's
done it.
talk about who you got winning this whole national championship and why. Who do you have in the national championship? Where are they playing at Atlanta?
Yes, I believe so. I believe Atlanta.
Yeah, Mercedes-Benz Stadium down in
Um,
Atlanta.
I really love Texas this year. I really do. I really like how complete they are.
Does
Um,
you being in Houston contribute to any of this?
no, without a doubt. I'm not a UT supporter in the slightest. Um, it just comes down to how healthy Quinn Ewers can stay, and if they don't play Georgia. That's really
So
UT's
you don't have
biggest.
Georgia making it to the end.
They if they UT has to play Georgia, then Georgia's winning. But I don't. It's tough. The biggest outlier for Georgia is the fact that I don't know what Gunner's going to do.
Right. He was okay in that SEC championship game, but it was a limited sample.
Exactly. So and mind you, the biggest question mark above your team is the most important position of your team. But it's also the team that I also
if Texas is going to go all the way, they are going to have to go through Oregon in the Cotton Bowl, assuming those two both win.
Mm-hmm. Which would be a big testament for both teams. Because I do think the winner of either one of those is probably going to be the team that wins it all.
I think Georgia's going to be a shoe-in for the Orange Bowl. I do.
Yeah, Georgia's. Once they get to this.
No, they're going to be a shoe-in for the championship because they're going to play Boise State or whoever wins SMU Penn State. Like they're going to go to the championship, assuming that Stockton doesn't blow.
Yeah, so tell me, so exactly, so their best opponent would be Penn State, and Penn State has played a game more than them, so they would be more run down, and then you have a more healthier Georgia team and a guy who's been there before. Yeah, I'd take Georgia, and then if Georgia goes to the national championship and has to play against UT or Oregon, I really like my chances for UGA at this time without Carson Beck. And then the legend of Kirby Smart grows because he's able to win without his quarterback.
No, he just pulled a Nick Saban. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do agree. I do lean Georgia. Just given how this thing is structured, I wish they would reseed.
Yeah, please. Like, man, look, like, honest to God, like, if I was to reseed this off the rip, like, Arizona State and Boise State wouldn't have buys. That would be given to, like, UT and probably Notre Dame. And then you would just have everybody else, like, reseeded how you would. Like, because I think those two out of the early slate probably are the two better teams. Maybe Ohio State, but then Ohio State had a really ugly loss against Michigan.
I'm fine with Arizona State and Boise State having buys as it's set up, but you need to reseed after that round. Like we cannot just somehow have like Texas just walking through Arizona State and having that. You can't have like, oh my gosh, you can't have Georgia just getting Boise State in the Orange Bowl and then just putting a whooping on them.
Yeah, because that's going to be the most lopsided game probably.
No, yeah, it's going to be bad.
Even if they got Penn State, you think James Franklin is going to be able to handle Kirby Smart?
He's going to be shitting himself, right?
Exactly. Like it's either way, Georgia is going to win the semifinal game by 21 plus points. And it's going to be a very bad game that nobody's going to want to watch. And the sad part is, what's the narrative going to be of like, if UT and Oregon becomes like one of the greatest shootouts, and it's just like, oh great, if we would have just reseeded, we would have never had
that could have been the championship, right?
Yeah, like because like last year we had a really good one because UT and UW went to like the very end, and then we also what was it? It was Michigan, Georgia, the other one before that.
Yeah, had to have been.
And so. Like it was like that was a great game all around, but I think it's
23. Yeah, Georgia's, it was. Oh, Michigan, Alabama. Michigan won by 7.
Michigan, yeah, they did. It was, and that was.
And then Michigan curb stomped Washington.
Because and that's the thing. It's like it's these teams that like Washington. I mean, let's not talk about TCU, the worst ever national championship, like game of all time. It's just
Yeah.
like some of these teams, like, yes, TCU beat Michigan, like they were supposed to, but it's like anybody and their mother could have told you that there was no way in hell that anybody was beating Georgia that year. No way. And then you just give them, oh, here you go. Here's Boise State, Georgia. Oh, here's SMU, Georgia. Like, why even play that game? Because you're just going to embarrass those kids. That's all that is. Because like it's going to be a bad game. Like unless what like Genty just goes off against Georgia's defense, and then
Yeah,
he
not
goes.
happening.
Yeah, this team goes against guys who are bigger than
That
him
D
on a
line is not going to allow for it.
exactly. The D line faces bigger guys on a daily basis in
They've seen
practice.
burritos bigger than that guard there, but the manhandle.
Exactly, and it's not like Genty is like Derrick Henry. He's 5'9". Like
No,
it's not
right.
like
He's not
it's just
bowling anybody over.
exactly. So I think it's Georgia has really like when they saw this seeding, they're like, "Hey, we ain't never gonna say nothing wrong." They
Right.
get
Like
everything
it's
right.
almost advantageous they were the 2 instead of the instead of the 1.
Exactly. Like, oh yeah, thank you. Like thank you, Oregon, for not losing. We just thank you for seeding all this correctly because like we're never gonna face any
Because if
type of
they were the
adversity.
1, they'd have to play Ohio State or Tennessee in the Rose Bowl.
Like, and that's exactly what you said about like this reseeding. It's just like, dude, like,
Seems like
come
an
on.
oversight. Seems like an
Yeah.
oversight for sure.
It's like, okay, like we have Penn State, who's never won really anything while James Franklin's there. We have SMU, who lost their bowl game by a field goal to Clemson. And then we also have Indiana, who's a very much hopeful, but gets mollywopped every time they play like a good team.
Notre Dame, who hasn't played nobody.
Exactly. Okay, Georgia, do you want to win everything? Because we just kind of brought out the red carpet for you. But
No,
then
they're
it would be
happily taking the 2 seed right now.
yeah. The Georgia's the clear like low key number one seed without it being the number one seed.
Oh,
Like
it's the
it's
easiest path ever. It is.
yeah, same thing with like number six. Like godly, how many teams would have wished if they could like lose on purpose to get the sixth seed? Like
What
when you
6 is
play
playing that
SMU,
thing?
then
Yeah.
Boise State. Like, come on.
Arizona State might take that deal.
Yeah, they probably Arizona State was probably like, hey man, like we could have easily just avoided this by losing on purpose. But it did.
Wait,
I got yeah, Georgia. I think it's Georgia's year to win it all. And or I think it's Oregon and then Texas. I would go like in that order of likely ones to
do you
win it
think
all.
before we get to the bowl games, do you think Ohio State fans care if they win the championship because they just
Hell no,
lost
you
to
lost to
Michigan?
Michigan. At the end of the day, let me tell you this. It's the best example is the same thing here in Texas. You can lose every single game, but if UT beats A&M, is a great year.
Gotcha. Okay. All
A&M,
right.
A&M can lose every game. They beat UT is a great year. They don't care.
All right. So I told us to pick before the show. I said pick one bowl game you wanted to go over. We added 2 additional ones, including the ones that we picked. I'll open up with mine. The Duke's Mayo Bowl in Charlotte. The Minnesota Golden Gophers taking on the Virginia Tech Hokies. I picked this game in particular because one, the Gophers are like the only team I've followed from year end, from the beginning to the end. They're a fun team to watch. They give teams hell. Shout out to my classmate Max Brosmer playing quarterback. This is probably going to be his last collegiate football game. He'll play in the Senior Bowl or East West Shrine. I forget which one. Minnesota's a fun team. I'm looking forward to it. PJ Fleck. It's gonna be a fun game. It's gonna be a fun game for sure. Row the boat, ski Yuma, and
Virginia Tech still waiting to be relevant since Frank Bramer left.
Virginia Tech's gonna get stomped. Minnesota's got this in the bag. And
That
what's crazy?
go
What's
ahead.
crazy is like with Brosmer, their passing game is suddenly respectable. Like the Gophers throughout the years have been, we're just gonna run the football, and even when we have to pass, we're gonna run.
What quarterback did they used to have? What's his last name? Tanner or something like that?
Tanner Morgan.
Yep.
He looked like Brian Hoyer before the 3 kids in the divorce.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a 6'5", like 230 quarterback right behind Brosmer waiting to come in. So I'm excited for that. It's going to be a fun year for the Gophers in 26. They should challenge for their side of the Big Ten division, and Virginia Tech, obviously, sad state of affairs. You wrote down the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl, number
Yep.
14 Ole Miss versus Duke. What'd you pick this one for?
Big reason why I think the best NFL prospect is actually in this game for a quarterback, and that's going to be Jackson Dart. I think he's the most slept on quarterback right now. And when it comes to evaluation, kind of like what Bo Nix was last year, I think it was, and the same thing too. Like Jackson Dart, notable 5-star guy, went to a big time school, didn't really pan out there, got replaced, and he was at USC when Caleb Williams showed up, and rightfully so. Caleb Williams was a better quarterback. Jackson Dart goes to Ole Miss. Jackson Dart has performed each and every year at Ole Miss and has gotten better, better, and better. Well, Bo Nix, you all know the story, went to Auburn just because his father played there, goes to Oregon, tears it up, has a career year, looks like a great NFL prospect. A lot of people did not like him. I was the only one who said I did. I'll be on the record on saying that I actually did see him a lot and really liked him. He was very limited at Auburn because of his passing game, but I do think Lane Kiffin's also just a hell of a fun head coach. I think him and Ole Miss is just perfect. They have a lot of good talent out there. Jackson Dart, I think this is going to be like it's his last game, so it's going to be his biggest statement to show like in a big game, like, hey,
Is he playing in it?
he should be. I believe so. Um,
You know
but
how it is with these college kids not want to play.
oh yeah, like I'm not getting hurt. I want to go to the NFL. But I mean, like at the end of the day, too, like I've always felt like
Yeah,
when a kid does
he
that,
he signals that he's going to play versus Duke.
which is good because at the end of the day, it kind of shows you the type of character. Like I committed myself to this school. I'm gonna play every single game, whether like while healthy, and I'm gonna go out there and play and win for my team so that way they can win a bowl game. And
So you picked
Duke
all
also,
this for Jackson Dart and nothing about Duke.
oh, I could care less about Duke. I mean, they have Malik Murphy, the former Texas quarterback over there. Like that's a good narrative for that instance. But I do think that Jackson,
Just
it's
another
just going to be a fun
basketball
game.
school.
Yeah, and I just do think that it's just a good game for Ole Miss. I mean, if anything, they were probably the team in the SEC that had the biggest bragging rights to be in the part of the college football playoff. Like if it was really up to me, like I would probably pick them over SMU. If Clemson would have lost, I think Ole Miss is probably the team people pick to go in. But
And Bama would still be crying.
yeah,
Speaking of
like
Bama, they're playing Michigan in Tampa in the ReliaQuest Bowl.
yeah, and hopefully they win that game because if they don't win that game,
Oh, Michigan fans are just going to be shaking their ass at everybody.
like yeah, good for y'all. Like I mean, at the same time, it's going to be a good. I think Alabama, like if you're an eligible player for the NFL draft, do not play this game. Like as much as I was just talking about Jackson Dart doing it for him, like this game, no, ain't no, like you're not in the college football playoff. Like just don't get hurt. Call it a day. The
How about the
only like
Snoop Dogg Bowl in Arizona, Miami
that
of
was
Ohio
yeah the
versus
fact
Colorado
that
State?
when me and Caleb were looking at bowl games, and I come across there's some lovely names here. Back in the day, it was like the Texas Bowl, Cotton Bowl, the Sugar Bowl,
They
Pete,
still have those. They just added a bunch more.
but now they all have names. Like that's the thing. It's just like we have really sold our
The
soul to the devil.
Wasabi Fenway Bowl.
Like NIL number has really made people get like a whole bunch of names. That like Verbo has a bowl. So now Snoop Dogg, presented by Gin and Juice, has a bowl game, and it's Miami of Ohio versus Colorado State. Now, I mean,
The Bad Boy Mowers Pinstripe Bowl.
exactly, bad boy mowers. Like the
Boston
next thing
College
is
versus
going to be
Nebraska.
like you're not gonna. It wouldn't be surprising that you get like the Timo Bowl or
The
like
Team
the
Bowl.
yeah, like you get Alibaba Bowl. Like is good the TikTok Bowl. Like this bowl presented to you by MetaQuest on Facebook, and the game can only be watched if you had a MetaQuest. Like the NIL is the especially its infancy has like really like we have really sold as much property as we could to
We
make
should
as much.
honestly do a stream just live reacting to the Snoop Dogg Bowl.
Yeah. But I hope Snoop Dogg. Okay, let me tell you this: like, if you better Snoop better be at the game.
Oh, he better
If he's
be.
not, like, come on. Like, what are
Him
we
and
on?
Dre.
Yeah,
All right.
him, Kevin Hart needs to be there too.
All right. All right. All right. We've been going for, what is it at? It's almost 2 hours now. Gerardo, you've been generous with your time. Thank you so much for coming on talking some college football. Obviously, our teams are miserable, so why not take a peek at the other side as far as college football goes? Is there anything you want to talk about before we close it out here? Send these lovely people on their way.
Thank you all so much, the Foxboro BeatCast fans. You guys have been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much, Caleb, for always having me on here. And I cannot wait till we actually live react to our predictions. I hope that we do it like a traditional, like how a streamer reacts to like their old predictions, like just have
for
one
sure.
of us to pause it and be like, I really said that.
Oh, we can make it happen. We can make it happen for sure. We can do that.
I'll be more like once this NFL season ends and like just to look back on it, like I would absolutely love that to see who got more right and who got more wrong. I bet you I got more wrong than anything else.
Oh, me too. Me too. But thank you all for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. Make sure you follow the page at Foxboro Beat. Make sure you download the 93Q app. Go ahead, listen to some great country music. I listen to it all the time. Very proud of it. And
I'm the reason for your Spotify Wrapped.
My Apple Music replay. I'm not a Spotify guy. And make sure you go listen to Wetzel. All right. We'll see you all later this week. I'll have LCO on for the regular BeatCast. We'll talk about the Patriots and why they suck. All right. You've been listening to the Foxboro BeatCast. Thanks for watching. We will see you all later.
Thanks for tuning in to this edition of the Foxboro BeatCast. Make sure you like and subscribe and follow us on Facebook and Instagram.